Read the Bible. Why are you asking me about God? You haven't read the Bible.
If you don't accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you are going to hell. There's a little Muslim girl there said you were already damned to hell. First point.
What was around before the universe? I don't know. Must have been something. But God. So they got to stick in God where we're not there yet. And I just say, we got top people working on that. No one is saying, did you have the free will to not have an epileptic seizure? Of course not. Do you have the free will to not be depressed? The person who's ready to jump off the bridge, in that instant, do they have the free will to not jump off the bridge? I don't think so.
Do you believe in God?
Me?
Creator?
Yeah, so I'm, the more I look at the universe, just the less convinced I am that there is something benevolent going on. So if your concept of a creator is someone who's all powerful and all good, that's not an uncommon pairing of powers that you might ascribe to a creator. All powerful and all good. And I look at disasters that afflict Earth and life on Earth. Volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, disease, pestilence, congenital birth defects. You look at this list of ways that life is made miserable on Earth by natural causes. And I just ask, how do you deal with that? So philosophers rose up and said, if there is a God, God is either not all powerful or not all good. I have no problems if, as we probe the origins of things, we bump up into the bearded man. If that shows up, we're good to go. Okay? Not a problem. There's just no evidence of it. And this is why religions are called faiths, collectively. Because you believe something in the absence of evidence. That's what it is. That's why it's called faith. Otherwise, we would call all religions evidence. But we don't, for exactly that reason. So I'm given what everyone describes to be the properties that would be expressed by an all-powerful being in the gods that they worship. I look for that in the universe and I don't find it. So I remain unconvinced. But if you've got some good evidence, bring it, bring it, bring it, okay? And so I don't lead with that information because what I believe should be irrelevant to anyone. It's not about me. It's about the real world.
Does God exist?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, you mean does that God exist? Because
yeah, I guess so.
Because if you
does
just
any
type God into, look at the wiki page on God, and there's thousands of gods listed there.
Does any God exist?
I based on what people say about what that God is supposed to do and its influence in the world, based on that, I remain unconvinced that anybody is in charge of anything in this world.
You're agnostic.
Yes.
You refuse to believe or disbelieve. You
It's
don't
not
have evidence.
Refuse is too harsh.
Yep.
I would welcome better evidence than what has been presented in defense of the existence of somebody who's in charge.
We had two guys on our podcast named Cliff and Stuart Connectley. They are devout Christians who spread the word, the gospel, and they were very convinced by the eyewitness testimony of Jesus, and that was I think, I don't want to like misquote them, but that they cited that as some of the strongest evidence they had to prove the existence of Jesus at one point in the Bible. And you're saying that you're saying
God,
eyewitness,
not Jesus.
Yeah,
So,
well, Jesus is God to some people. Jesus
no, but the existence of God and the existence of Jesus.
Let's stick with God
are separable variables.
Okay,
here.
so maybe that's do you think Jesus existed?
Because Thomas Jefferson, okay, one of our founding fathers, published a book called The Morals of Jesus of Nazareth. Okay? And you know what's in that book? He took the New Testament, physically cut out with scissors, every reference to a miracle, anything mythical, magical, conversations with God, and he left in the wisdom of Jesus. And so to Jefferson, Jesus was a wise person who had a lot of good things to say, but the religious dimensions of him was denied in that compilation of his book. That's why I didn't call him Jesus Christ, which means Jesus the Anointed One, Jesus of Nazareth. So one can embrace the existence of Jesus. By the way, there's some people who doubt it, but I don't. have the energy to go that way. I don't have an. If he's fine, he exists fine. He's a person, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is his existence or not is a very different issue from whether you want to say somebody created the universe and is in charge of things.
Can biblical explanations of the universe and scientific explanations of the universe both be true?
The history of that exercise really has not boded well for the Bible.
Okay.
It's if you go to the Bible and deduce something about how the universe must be based on the Bible, and then make a prediction about the world, not a post-diction, a prediction, because that's how science works at its best. Anytime anyone has done that, it has shown to be false. So the record is not there. Enlightened religious people today don't use the Bible as a science textbook. They use it as a source of inspiration and a source of moral compass, even though there's a lot of sort of stuff in there you wouldn't do today because sensibility, like if your kids disrespect you, you will not stone them. Okay, that's in the Bible. The things you just, did
that really?
Read the Bible. Why are you asking me about God? You haven't read the Bible.
It's not my name on the show, man. Listen.
Now it's
That was good.
Going back quickly to
and you know Joan of Arc?
Yes,
okay?
of course. Yeah.
Burned at the stake.
Yep.
All right,
Tough.
They try to that. Okay,
but things were very different in those times. I want to ask you this quickly.
Wait, I got to say this quickly.
Yep.
Do you know if you read the transcripts of, because the Catholic Church keeps very good records, if you read the transcripts, do you know like a third of why they built the case against her? It was for cross-dressing.
What?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So why? Because in the Bible, in Leviticus, there's the line: if a man dons the clothes of a woman, or a woman don the clothes of a man, it is an abomination unto the Lord thy God.
Wow.
And they said, let's use that because she's not dressing in a skirt. She's not leading soldiers into battle side saddle. Okay, and so she's like the first. There she is. And so
Dude, I've been
it's the Bible. What?
I've been dressing up like a woman. I've been dressing up like a woman since I was like 10.
It's an abomination to the. So what I'm saying is,
Neil, let's keep the cross-dressers out of this for a second.
You have to cherry pick the Bible to say that it is your moral compass.
Who pushed the button for the Big Bang? Commonly held belief in science community.
We
the
don't
Big
know.
Bang.
It's a frontier of science.
Right from the start, this question cuts to the core. If there's a God who is all-powerful and all good, the world we actually live in doesn't reflect that. Look at reality. Natural disasters don't pick targets based on morality. Diseases don't care who you are. Birth defects happen before someone can make a single choice. That's not a system guided by care. It's a system running on indifferent natural processes. Philosophers have pointed this out for centuries. If suffering exists at this scale, then either God isn't fully good or not fully powerful. You can't logically hold both. And when people say they believe, that word matters. It means there isn't solid evidence, because if there were, we wouldn't call it belief. We'd call it knowledge. Even when it comes to religious texts, the track record is clear. When people try to use them to explain the universe and make predictions, they don't hold up. That's why even many believers today don't treat them as science. So the starting point here is simple. If something is real and active in the world, there should be evidence of it. And so far, that evidence just isn't there.
So Chuck,
Yes.
we haven't talked about God in a while.
Oh, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, it's just that the history of civilization, anytime people had gods that they revered, they're in high places. The heavens have been associated
Right.
with deity
Correct.
from the beginning.
Right.
Okay. And so my field, astrophysics, directly confronts many people's questions
Mhm.
regarding our existence
Right.
for that reason.
Mommy, where's heaven? Oh, it's up there. No, it's not because I have a telescope. It's not up there, Mommy.
Right. So you have that intersection
Right.
of people's curiosity and what actually happens in modern astrophysics.
Okay.
And if you are religious or prone to be religious,
Right.
It's
Which
easy,
I think everyone is.
but perhaps, yeah, we're
I think
human.
we're prone to
It's a
be. I don't-
human
it doesn't-
thing.
It's a human thing.
Given how prevalent it has been.
Exactly. Throughout our entire existence.
Exactly.
And some of the earliest recordings of communication involve exactly that.
Correct. The burial rituals of Neanderthal, for example.
Right.
Right. You can only have done that if you thought there was an afterlife
Right.
or a supernatural force.
Yes.
There's an urge, I think, to see that which is unknown in the universe. You hear of it. Big unknowns like dark matter and dark energy. Two hugely mysterious pieces of modern astrophysics that are unresolved.
Right.
And they're not little, they're big.
Okay.
You add them together, it's 95, 96% of what is driving this universe, and we have no clue what it is.
That's insane.
No
Yeah.
clue.
That makes me feel like we're the mistake here. I'm just saying.
Because we're not the
Because
majority of
we're
what's
not
going on.
that. Yeah, when 97% of the stuff that's there is not you, you probably don't belong there. Yeah.
Damn, Chuck.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Anyhow, so we can measure them. It's not a mystery that it's there.
That is there.
All right. We can measure their existence. We don't know what it is.
What it is.
All right. And there's precedent for that. We knew about the spectra of stars as soon as we were able to bring a spectroscope to the telescope.
Okay,
So there's interesting information here. We don't understand it, but
Right.
we know it must be important. It's different for this star than that star.
Right.
Oh, these two stars match. Let's make a catalog of all the spectra. Later, we would learn quantum physics, and we could then interpret what was going on. And thus was the birth of our modern understanding of stellar evolution. The first steps are the measurements.
Right.
So it's not so weird that we have measurements and don't know what it is.
Right.
So there's not only that, there are other questions that are just simply yet to be answered,
Okay.
as opposed to mysteries. So one of them is what was around before the Big Bang.
That's a
It
big
might
one.
have been a multiverse, but even if there is a multiverse, what was
Yeah,
around
the one
before the
before the
multiverse?
multiverse.
Okay. And we don't yet know how Earth went from organic molecules to self-replicating life.
Right.
All right. Earth figured it out. We haven't figured that out yet.
Right.
Granted, Earth took a couple 100 million years. All right.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do it in the lab overnight.
Right.
But still, that's a mystery.
And who knows how many failures over that couple 100 million years Earth had?
Good point.
You know?
Because they ain't left.
Well, they're
Right.
not there.
They're
Right.
not there. They didn't survive. So if you lean religious, you will see these mysteries as where God might reside.
Yes.
God is operating there.
Right.
And there's a long tradition of this, actually, but philosophers got wise to it and they came up with a term for it. We've mentioned it on a couple of other
Absolutely.
of our explainers. God of the gaps.
God of the gaps.
The God of the gaps.
It's a very powerful concept.
And it's got the alliteration, so
Yes,
you're kind of
I do.
stuck
I
with
like
people. So it's the urge to declare that if there's something you don't understand about the universe, that God must be there with the puppet strings or
Right.
with the forcing of what's going on.
Right.
And my favorite God of the gaps moment, can I tell you
Is?
that? It was Ptolemy,
Okay.
Claudius Ptolemy, AD 150, in the margin of his greatest work, the Almagest.
Right.
Okay, actually, just Almagest,
Right.
which is Arabic for.
Math. Hi, I wrote a book called Math. Guess what's in it?
Almagest is the greatest. It's an Arabic translation of the greatest.
That's so cool.
And he masterfully codified the epicycles that he was sure planets traced in the sky,
Really?
with Earth in the middle of the known universe.
Oh.
There's no other way to account for planets going backwards and
forwards.
With retrograde, we have words for it even.
Right.
Goes backwards, retrograde.
Right.
We think the planet's actually doing that.
That's why your washing machine's not working, because Mercury's in retrograde. Your phone stopped working. It's not gremlins. It's Mercury in retrograde.
I don't think Mercury cares about inanimate objects. I think
Man,
it only cares about people.
it speaks so highly of you. How could you say that?
So he does this, but
Right.
it's still kind of a mystery. Why would all that happen?
Exactly.
It's just doing it. I can account for it with my little epicycles. And he wrote in his margins, as I trace the windings to and fro of the heavenly bodies, I no longer touch earth with my feet. I stand in the presence of Zeus himself and take my fill of ambrosia.
Damn, he was just wrong on many accounts. he didn't even get the right God.
What he's getting at lines up with what we actually know from science. There's no physical location for heaven in the sky. We've mapped planets, stars, and galaxies across billions of light years, and everything we see follows natural laws: gravity, radiation, and particle physics. When it comes to the unknown, science doesn't guess. It measures. Dark matter and dark energy make up about 95% of the universe, and we know they exist because of how galaxies move and how the universe expands. That's based on observation, not belief. History shows a pattern too. People once thought the sun revolved around Earth, and that was tied to religious views. Science corrected that. The same thing keeps happening. Unknowns get explained over time. Even early biblical ideas about the universe, like a solid dome over the Earth in Genesis 1:6-8, don't match what we observe today.
He went with Zeus.
He's Greek. He's Greek, okay?
Yeah, no,
so
I get
give
it.
the man his religion.
All right.
Don't take away his religion.
Right,
And so that, for me, was the crowning moment of God of the Gaps.
right.
All right, so there are people who, to this day,
Which, by the way, I mean, before we go further, that's another iteration of how we experience God. He understood something was going on, but it inspired awe within him. And whenever somebody feels that sense of awe, they often want to attribute that to God.
correct, because it's beyond their grasp.
Right.
So this is, it's been going on forever,
Right.
this urge.
Yeah.
Okay. My caution there is, if that's how you define God, where science has yet to tread,
Right.
then God to you is an ever receding pocket of scientific ignorance.
Oh, that's sad. I mean, that's
If
sad.
you
That's
define
if
God
you
that
define
way,
God
it's
that
an
way.
if statement.
Right.
So round two.
Round two.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay.
Round two. All right. There are people who, they're not falling for the God of the gaps.
Right.
To them, God is everything.
Yeah.
Gaps and no gaps.
Right.
Okay? So that God, that's a different God. Okay?
Okay.
That's not just a God who's lurks,
Right.
because science is an ever-moving frontier, right? One day we'll figure out dark matter, dark energy, and what happens to your God if that's what it was. All right?
Right. Okay.
So the people who say God is everything, that resembles greatly Spinoza's God. He suggested
Yeah.
that the very order of the universe, the operations of nature, everything we see, feel, and experience is God.
Okay. And now I know a lot of people who feel that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So that would be Spinoza's God. And when Einstein was asked, does he believe in God? He said, if there's a God I believe in at all, I'm paraphrasing, it's Spinoza's God. Okay?
Right.
That's a different God from a God that is paying attention to your behavior. So as you come from that posture to gods that are more engaged with you and your existence,
Personally involved.
then these would be gods you pray to.
Okay.
You wouldn't pray to Spinoza's God. I just want to make it clear to people that when they say God,
Right.
God has very different meanings to different people,
There's a tiered
even throughout
perception
history.
of God.
Even throughout history.
Wow,
Correct.
that's great.
Correct.
Okay. I like it.
Okay.
So far, this is great.
So a common God manifesting today in people's beliefs is a God that cares about them
Right.
and their health, wealth, and well-being,
Right.
and their prayers, and the like.
Right.
Okay. So there is a point of view that says this universe is so amazing. There had to be a God, an intelligence behind it.
The intelligent design people.
So in that case, they're not looking at a rock and saying there's intelligence behind it.
Right.
They're looking at something more complicated than they can understand
Right.
and saying, there's the intelligence.
Right.
All right. They look at the operations of a cell,
Yes.
all that going on in something that's microscopic. They're just
Exactly.
amazed by it. They're in awe
And awe.
of it. And so surely God is at work
Right.
around here.
Yeah.
Now, so one of them that went around for a while, and I found it very unconvincing, it was the laws of physics are exactly the way they need to be for us to be alive.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, okay. If they were slightly different, then we wouldn't be here. Like if the charge on the electron or the value of the gravitational constant or the speed of light, you know, things like that. And they all configure to make matter and energy come together such that we can be alive in that universe.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, there's some people that even on a macro level, they're like, we live in the Goldilocks zone of these planets, and the other planets are dead as far as we're concerned.
As far as we know. That's
As
right.
far as we know.
So with all of these parameters in just the right way, in just the right place, people who are lean religious refer to it as the fine-tuning argument.
Interesting. Okay.
Everything's fine-tuned
Right.
to produce life,
Right.
human life.
Right.
Now, so
He's a God of precision that has placed things in this perfect
configuration,
kind of synchronicity.
Yes.
That
Okay.
all the gears mesh and everything works so that we get life.
And we pop out. Exactly.
Right.
I don't argue the fact that we have constants of nature that if they were slightly different, we wouldn't be here. I don't have an argument against that.
I mean, that's.
But my argument, however, is if whoever created the universe, if there's such an entity that did, why make a universe where we didn't show up for 13.8 billion years?
Right.
Not only that, Earth was not born until the universe was already 8-9 billion years old.
Right.
And then life begins, single-celled organisms. Is this the God of that life? Okay.
God is everything. Then that's not the personal God of Christianity anymore. That's just nature with a label slapped on it. No prayers, no miracles, no relationship. Just physics doing its job. And when people try to argue intelligent design or fine-tuning, it doesn't hold up the way they think it does. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old, and humans showed up in the last tiny fraction of that time. For billions of years, there was nothing resembling human life. If this was designed specifically for us, why the massive delay? Even worse, most of the universe is completely hostile to life. Extreme radiation, black holes, freezing emptiness. That doesn't look like a carefully designed home. It looks random and indifferent. Biology tells the same story. Life didn't appear fully formed. It started simple and evolved over billions of years through natural selection. No guiding hand needed, just chemistry and time.
So normally I don't go here. Normally I don't go here, because I just like talking about astrophysics. But given this conference and given how many of you out there are rabid atheists, I got to give you a bone here. I got to toss you a bone, okay? So I'm going to toss you a few bones, okay? Just because you're rabid, all right? So let's look at some data here. You probably know all these data. Actually, the data I'm about to show is for the United States. I don't know what it is. I'm sure the data exists. But when I compiled it, I'm going to make yet a separate point. So it wouldn't have mattered what country was represented here. In America, 90% of the nation would claim to be religious. And you define this in a way that's unambiguous. You don't say, well, do you go to church every Sunday? You don't ask that question. Plenty of people go to church who are not religious. They go to get a date or so. They go for the cupcakes or something. They don't go to be spiritually enlightened. So you ask a different question. You say, is there a God that listens to your prayers? If you answer yes to that, you're religious by anybody's definition, because your understanding of a deity is that that deity is monitoring your daily affairs. So that's unambiguous. This number's dropped in the last couple of years, but it's about 90%. Turns out if you go to college and get an advanced degree, a master's or a doctorate, where these are degrees where you actually question the state of existing knowledge. The undergraduate degree doesn't really do that. You're learning from textbooks that are written by somebody else. Your doctrines are already there. The higher degrees imply that you are questioning the very fabric of the knowledge you had previously learned. Among that community, it's 60%. It has dropped. Well, that's interesting. Let's keep going. How about scientists of all stripes? So biologists, chemists, let's include engineers as well, people who have formal scientific training, mathematicians as well. Okay, what happens next? Drops to 40%. Now, if you look at this number, it looks like, wow, so scientists, the public is 90%, scientists are 40%. No, the drop is not that significant, because every scientist has an advanced degree. So in fact, the drop is not from 90 to 40, the drop is from 60 to 40. So becoming a scientist is not as big an effect on whether you're religious as you might otherwise think. Most of the drop comes because you're educated beyond the level of college. So that's 40%. So now you go to elite scientists, members of the National Academy, highly accomplished subset among scientists, the number drops to 7%. There was a headline in Nature, the British journal Nature, which said, after this study was released, 93% of elite scientists reject God. So that was supposed to be a shocking headline. And I look at that and I said, that's not even interesting. That was the trend line anyway. What's more interesting, which was not the headline, is that 7% of elite scientists pray to a God. Isn't that a more interesting fact to you? Isn't that kind of interesting? The most accomplished scientists in the world, in that community, 7% of them still pray to a personal God. I think that is deserving of more study than the 93% who don't. Because something's going on there. We don't know what. And I have confronted people on this. I would say, to the most sort of vociferous in the atheist community, I would say, you're beating the public over the head, telling them, why are you doing that? And I'm thinking, before you beat the public, why don't you beat them over the head, okay? No, I'm just saying, if you're gonna rank, if you just, because understand that first, because if you can't convert that 7%, you've got no hope in the general public. That's all I'm saying. This is among the ranks of the scientifically educated. Now, philosophers basically invented atheism. And if you do this, if you check the statistic for philosophers, it's below 1%. There are no religious, the only religious philosophers there are, they're like theologian philosophers, all right? If you subtract the theologic philosophers, this number is essentially zero, all right? So they're basically birthed atheism, the philosophers.
This data hits hard because it exposes a clear pattern. The more people actually think, question, and study reality, the less religion holds up. It's not random. In the general public, belief is high, but that's where people are least trained to challenge ideas. Once you move into higher education, especially where people are trained to question assumptions, belief drops fast. And it drops even more among scientists. These are people working directly with evidence, testing reality every day. Then you go to the top level, elite scientists, and belief in a personal God almost disappears. That's not a coincidence. That's a trend tied to evidence and critical thinking. It gets even more direct with philosophers. Once you strip out theology, belief is basically zero. These are people whose entire job is to test logic and truth claims. And when they do, religion doesn't survive that scrutiny.
And there's this talk, I don't know here in Australia, does the Bible in the public school class or not? No, is it by law or is it just by tradition? Is it by law? Okay, so in America there's this understanding that the state and the church are separate. And by and large, that's been honored for most of the history of the country, by and large. And what's interesting about America, a point that was a little bit alluded to earlier today, is that it was founded on the principle that the state has no religion. The state is indifferent to what religion you might have. So that means there's no authority over you that's going to tell you who and what to worship. And that's a state that we all take for granted, but so many places in the world that is not true. Well, there's a case in New Jersey where a middle school kid was lectured to by the history teacher in a public school, and the history teacher said, if you don't accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you are going to hell. And there's a little Muslim girl there, said you are already damned to hell. First point. Second, that Noah had dinosaurs on his ark. Third point he made is that Big Bang and evolution are just theories, and you can take them or leave them. So, I don't, like I said, I don't get into these. I just don't. We got people who do this. We've got the Four Horsemen. We got our boy here who's coming up after. We got people who fight this stuff. I'm not one of those, really. I'm doing this because, like, I know you're all, this is the bone I'm throwing you, but I don't do this. So, but then I thought about it, and I said, I have an op-ed, a letter to the editor on this that I can write. And I left out the part about Jesus. I left that out. Because if that's how he feels, he wants you to be Christian, that's okay, fine. I left that out. I went to the rest of what he said. And this was my letter, as it appeared in the New York Times. People cited violation of the First Amendment when a New Jersey, that's a separation of church and state, essentially. New Jersey school teacher asserted that evolution and the Big Bang are not scientific and that Noah's Ark carried dinosaurs. The case is not about the need to separate church and state. It's about the need to separate ignorant, scientifically illiterate people from the ranks of teachers. That's the problem. If he wants to believe Jesus is his savior, that's not synonymous with being scientifically illiterate, because 40% of American scientists pray to a personal God. What is identical with being scientifically literate is that if Noah was a human being, he did not have dinosaurs on his ark, because humans and dinosaurs did not coexist. All right? Every one of those scientists knows that, even the 40% who pray to God. So this is how I've sort of split the kingdom there. Then you get the billboard wars. Okay, this was fun. Big Bang Theory. You got to be kidding. God. All right. So this goes on. This is what we put up with. All right. So then then there was like, let's come back. Praise Darwin, evolved beyond belief. Freedom from religion found it. So the billboard wars are in progress here. There's some people who are like okay with God and okay with sort of how things evolve, so they ride the fence. So here's a bumper sticker. The Big Bang Theory, God spoke and bang, it happened, So they're excited about both, God and the Big Bang. But then we had this idiot back in May, Judgment Day. Did this Judgment Day stuff reach below the equator? Jeez, okay. Yeah, it was. Now the good thing, unlike other predictions, like Jesus will come one day, this had a date, okay? You could test it. This was like easy to test. You just sort of wait around for it, all right? So, now it turns out that May 21st was only the day Jesus was supposed to show up. The actual end of the world is October 21st. So the end of the world is still to come this year. This is directly from the website. So I had to tweet. So this was May 21st. So on May 21st, or May 20th, I tweeted this. If Jesus actually arrives May 21st, it'll be easy to convince skeptics. If he doesn't show up, do the faithful become atheists? That was my question. Now, in a Twitter stream, it's a live conversation with complete strangers. Everybody depositing their 140 characters worth of thought. So here this is. There was a huge reaction to that tweet. Now, you would expect that most of my followers, or at least a big fraction of them, would be sort of atheistic. So you'd expect people to say, this guy's an idiot, why are we even spending any time on them? Well, one such person did make such a reply, but not in the way you might think. No, anyone who's read the Bible knows this camping asshole was full of shit from the start. Okay. So what do you do with that? So this is somebody complaining about the prediction of Jesus coming because he says this other guy doesn't know jack about the Bible, but this guy does. And went on, there are other places where people quoted that one can't know when Jesus comes. So the fact that this guy's saying he knows means he doesn't read the Bible. So this is what's out there. People who are ready to vociferously argue about who knows the Bible the least.
This section exposes a different problem. When religion moves from personal belief into education, it starts breaking reality. Teaching kids that dinosaurs lived with humans or that evolution is optional isn't just wrong, it's ignoring basic evidence. Fossils, carbon dating, and geology all show dinosaurs went extinct about 65 million years before humans existed. That's not debated in science. And when people say evolution is just a theory, they're misusing the word. In science, a theory is the highest level of explanation backed by repeated evidence, like gravity or germs causing disease. Evolution sits in that same category. Then look at failed predictions. When people set exact dates for the end of the world and nothing happens, belief doesn't collapse. It shifts the goalpost or blames interpretation. Even the Bible itself says no one can know the timing in Matthew 24:36, yet people still make claims and others defend them. At that point, it's not about truth anymore. It becomes people arguing over interpretations of a text instead of testing claims against reality.
Does religion have such a persistent hold on human thought despite all that we know of science?
Yeah, I think there are several ways one can address that question. Let me address it in a consider not long ago when so much of the Western world was the state was the religion. And we have actually moved quite a distance from that compared with 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, the era of the Inquisition and this sort of thing. And so to say that it has such a grip, it has a fraction of the grip that it once did on the operations of human conduct and of society. So the real question is, if implicit in that is, given what we know of science, why would religion still have any grip at all? Not why does it still have a big grip? Because it's not a big grip when you look in the developed world. So, in fact, most of Europe are just, they're whole countries where religion has essentially disappeared entirely. And the countries are not full of violence and, it's just the assumption that you have to be religious to be moral is a false one. It's empirically false because you just look around in places where that's the case. So that's one fact. And we pull away from that a little. There's plenty of what goes on in religious texts that has tremendous value to how to think about life and how to treat one another. In fact, Jefferson created what was essentially what you can think of as Thomas Jefferson, the Jefferson Bible. I don't know if you ever heard of this. He went through the Bible, and I think both the Old and the New Testaments, and he crossed off everything that was sort of mythical, magical, things that clearly violated known laws of nature, and kept the rest, and said, here is the stuff of the Bible that should have value to any modern person going forward. If you look at people who are religious today, who are not in conflict with science, they have viewed their religious text as a spiritual, something that gives them spiritual support, not as a science textbook. The conflict in society is when you have those who are still religious, who want to use their religious text as their access point to understanding the natural world. And persistent efforts of the past to make that happen have just simply failed. The Bible does not work as a science textbook. In fact, Galileo knew this, and he himself was a religious man. He's famously quoted as saying, the Bible tells you how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. So on that scale, the conflict comes about when that subset of the religious community feels threatened by scientific discoveries that are different from how they interpret what should the natural world should be in the Bible.
I think it's that point where you get to the concept of the God of the gaps. You go, we do not understand this. Science takes us so far, but we don't understand anything beyond that. Therefore, that's God. The stuff that we don't get, that's God. And the trouble with that is the moment that you actually go, no, we do understand that now. Is people are going, well, did God just go away then? And it goes back, nice simple things like the rainbow. The point where you go, well, the rainbow actually, it's an optical effect. It's not something magic that gets put up in the sky to memorialize the flood.
Plus, did you know that everyone sees a unique rainbow?
No.
That's right. The rainbow is an optical effect for the person who sees it. So if you stand 10 feet to my left, you see a different rainbow than I see. It's a remarkable, fun fact about rainbows.
My favorite fun fact about rainbows is the fact that they were originally believed to have 6 color bands, but that Newton added indigo and violet.
Newton
he liked his 7s.
The number 7. He had the mystical feeling for the number 7. Throws in indigo that no one else sees.
Yeah, hands up here. Who actually goes, indigo, violet, there's the indigo. You don't. You just go purple.
Yeah, exactly.
Go blue, purple. But
so another thing about the rainbow, because each rainbow is unique to the viewer, it can only be a rainbow that is exactly face-on to you. You've never seen a rainbow that was like at an oblique angle. Think about it. They're exactly hemispherical in front of you. That's why you can never get to the base of the rainbow. Because that would mean your perspective on it would change. That's what makes it a good place to hide the gold. Okay? In case you didn't know. All right.
Are you outing yourself here as an unbeliever in leprechauns? People have been burned at stakes for
Indeed am. Another thing, you mentioned the God of the gaps. In a free society, a free pluralistic society, where the freedom of the expression of religion is constitutionally protected, which is a fundamental part of why America was so attractive to immigrants from around the world, whose religious differences were not being supported in their hometown. I will never be one to tell you what you should believe or what you should not believe. What I will say is that if you want to say that where we don't understand things, that's where God rests, that's where God operates, the God of the gaps argument, because I get asked that all the time. What was around before the universe? I don't know. Must have been something, God. So they got to stick in God where we're not there yet. And I just say, we got top people working on that. It's a current frontier. We're not there yet. And given the history of the moving frontier, where people had previously said, well, God must be operating, we're long past that. Those explanations have come. And so there's no compelling reason to say God did it and then sort of give up and go on to the next problem. My issue with the God of the gaps is that if you feel that way, you should not be writing the science curriculum of a classroom. Okay? That's all. Okay? Because if you do, you are undermining the very process of what science is all about. Because the God of the gaps principle is it's a philosophy of ignorance, whereas science is a philosophy of discovery. And that's an important distinction between the two. And if you remove that foundation for what builds science, you are undermining the capacity of your culture, of your nation, to compete technologically in the 21st century. So it is not without consequence to have conduct of that way.
At this point, the real question isn't whether religion is true. It's why it's still around at all. And the answer isn't evidence, it's habit and culture. In many parts of the world, belief has already faded and nothing collapsed. Countries with low religious belief still function, still have laws, still have stable societies. That alone challenges the idea that religion is necessary for morality. What actually causes conflict is when religion tries to explain the natural world. It doesn't work. Even historically, people had to separate those roles. Galileo understood this centuries ago. Religious texts were never reliable guides for how the universe operates. And when science explains something, like how a rainbow forms through light and water droplets, what used to be called divine becomes understandable. Not less meaningful, just no longer supernatural. The deeper issue is this. Science keeps moving forward because it questions and tests. Religion often stops at an answer and defends it. One approach builds knowledge, the other protects belief, even when the evidence moves on.
Here's my take. It is true that at some level of resolution that we can observe, causality is absolutely true. Given these initial conditions, this is what will happen afterwards.
That's the physicist in you
That's the
speaking.
physicist in you speaking.
Exactly.
So if you take it to its logical conclusion, then there is no free will because everything is predetermined by things that
Everything has an antecedent.
whether you know it or not, something is causing it to
Right.
happen.
Something
right?
precipitated the thing
That's
that
right.
caused the thing
That's
that
right.
made
It's
that
always
happen.
going to happen. But
Right.
there is also stochastic uncertainty in the universe. It's built in. There's randomness, there's unpredictability. Yeah. And so you have to ask, I think, if you're a physicist, what level of chaos actually affects you to the extent that you could actually make an instantaneous decision based on other stuff that's not necessarily in your past experiences or what you have just seen in your current environment. Right?
But wouldn't all those past experiences and your current environment, despite the fact that if you're introducing an element of chaos so that you've never experienced this ever before, your experiences that you have had would then inform your decision about the thing that you've never experienced.
Your inform is the word.
Oh.
Is it inform
Rather than
or dictate?
predicate. Right.
Right. Or require. Right. That's the thing there. Yeah. Let's say you're in a room with a whole bunch of audience members. You tell a joke.
Right.
It falls flat. In that moment, you have many things you could do to turn it into a laugh point.
True.
Right? You hear silence and you'd be like, oh, that was good. And then everyone laughs. Or, so you make some
Or
sort
is
of
this
comment.
mic on? You know,
Yeah,
that's
right.
the old one.
Right.
What do you do? Do you have the freedom to choose one of several choices that you had designed from your past, that you prepared to deal with that eventuality? Or is the choice made for you already?
But if he was less experienced, he might not dig out of that hole
Yes.
as effectively or efficiently.
Exactly.
But if you've been in 100 cases where you had a joke bomb,
Right.
you have data on how to pull out of it.
Exactly.
So statistically, you have a chance of getting people
And it
to
happens
smile.
instantaneously.
Right,
You
in
don't
the
even
moment.
realize that it's happening.
It's in the
you know?
moment.
So
But
it's in the
yeah.
moment. Right.
Did you have free will to not?
See, that's right.
Right.
So now that would be interesting because here you are in a place where your instinct, your training, and
Your
your
10,000
desire,
10,000 hours,
right,
whatever it is.
will, as a reflex, cause you to say this, this, and this, and then people go, "Wow, that was great! Look how he turned it around."
So, Charles, can I say in that comment
Yeah.
that he preloaded his neurosynapses so that in that moment, they all tripped.
right,
They tripped meaning triggered
That's right.
to go to the solution to that problem.
right.
The same is true
But
for,
then I wouldn't have free will at that point.
That's
It
what I'm
would just
saying.
be a response. What I would have is a response to a
That's right.
situation, not
Yes.
necessarily. I wasn't really choosing that.
It chose it for you.
It chose it for me.
you have 5 choices, and then your system chooses one of the 5 or
In that moment.
In that moment, right? And so in that moment, you are not exercising free will. Did you set it up though with free will in the past so that you could react this way deterministically, but you actually were in control of the circumstance, right? Here's another physical example of that. A football player is trying to sack a quarterback. The quarterback jukes left. The person trying to sack the QB doesn't have enough time to think about whether to move left or right or up or down. It has to react based on years of training and practice and experience. So in that moment, that action is not free. But in the setting up of that moment, if it was free enough, does that constitute free will? From a physics perspective, it might not. Then again, from a psychological point of view or from a biological point of view, it might.
Wait, what good are you if you're not landing on one side or the other?
Yeah.
I don't need you to say, it could be this, it could be that. And I'm right both ways.
Yeah.
Whichever the actual answer is, I was right.
Yeah. Well, he's saying, I don't really have the free will to make that determination. I'm going to be right or wrong.
Let's just ask an opinion. In my opinion, I would like to have free will exist in this universe, even though philosophically it can be argued that it does not exist.
Are you happy with a world where you perceive free will even if it isn't?
Maybe. This has to do with the movie Arrival, right? Starring Amy Adams.
Yes.
Where if you know how your future is going to turn out, would you like to live your life anyway? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is yes, I would. But
Okay.
I still would like to think that the future is not yet predetermined.
No, but I know what? It's different. I'm not saying it's predetermined and you know it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, would you still be happy with life if some alien said, look, dude, your life is predetermined. There's nothing you can do about it. Keep on believing you have free will. And then they go back to their planet.
You're a puppet on a string.
A puppet on a string from a free will puppet.
You're a free will puppet on a string.
What I would say in that case is that I would hope that the knowledge that I have that puppet on the string circumstance allows me to circumvent it. I can find a way. If it's fate, right? You've seen so many Greek mythology stories where you try to avoid the fate of whatever the gods have
And
destined
the act
for
of
you.
avoiding it
The act
makes
of
it
avoiding
makes it happen.
Like Oedipus, for example.
Oedipus
Right.
would be the most
Famous of those.
egregious
Yeah.
example. Yes.
Sorry.
So the bottom line is, yes, I would still be satisfied with trying to do something different, because even the illusion of trying to do something different is in itself a form of free will. Physics-wise, though,
It's not.
that's the challenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Neil, if you had to right now decide that free will does exist or doesn't exist, what would you prefer?
My thinking over the recent years, because I didn't used to think about this at all. My thinking over recent years is leaning towards the absence of free will for practically everything we think and do in our lives. And I base that on the fact that over time, things that we have done as people in our species, at one time was you are totally to blame for that, or just something you did, or something we've learned, no, this person is more susceptible than you are to addiction.
Right.
There's a biochemistry there. This person cannot just be made the life of the party because they're on the autism spectrum. They don't control that in the way you might think they should, just because you're the life of the party. As you add up all of these things, let's go back to epilepsy, where before that was even a word, you were occupied by the devil. Did you do something bad? Well, you knew it was not, everyone knew you were not in control of it. But today, no one is saying, did you have the free will to not have an epileptic seizure? Of course not. Do you have the free will to not be depressed? The person who's ready to jump off the bridge, in that instant, do they have the free will to not jump off the bridge? I don't think so. And the more I add up and explore the human condition, I'm forced to conclude that the direction we are headed is that we are all products of an absence of free will. And as a result, society needs more compassion for people who do not otherwise fit in.
This creates a serious problem for the idea of a personal God, especially in Christianity. If everything we do is shaped by biology, environment, and prior causes, then free will starts to break down. And if free will breaks down, the entire system of sin, judgment, heaven, and hell starts to fall apart with it. Think about it. People don't choose their genetics, brain chemistry, or upbringing. Conditions like addiction, depression, or neurological differences directly affect behavior. Even in the Bible, people were blamed for things we now understand medically. Seizures were called demonic possession. Today we know that's neurological, not spiritual. So if actions are influenced, or even determined, by factors outside our control, how can a just God punish someone for them? That doesn't line up with fairness or logic. What this points to is a shift. Instead of judgment, we move toward understanding. Science doesn't condemn, it explains. And the more we learn about human behavior, the harder it becomes to justify the idea of divine punishment tied to free choices.
See, I have the exact opposite position
Uh-oh.
in my own mind. I feel that it is because of the absence of free will that you see in most behavior, that it is that 1% of free will activity that moves us in the right direction, bends us toward compassion, takes the arc of history toward justice.
But but going back to what Neil just said, there are people who actually suffer from personality disorders, that suffer from brain disorders, where they can't do what you just said. They can't express compassion. They can't move
there
towards
was a day when no one even thought to analyze it that way, as a brain disorder.
Yeah, you were just an a-hole.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it.
Now, if they can't, you can. You can show that person compassion or understanding. And therefore, free will as an entity exists.
Charles, you're drawing a line
if
that I have seen be in constant motion over the decades and over the centuries. That
Interesting.
line that you're saying, they don't have free will, but I do. I don't know that I can.
See, I have free will over some things and not over others. Someone can see me and say, that person needs help in this way and has the free will to help me. I see somebody else who needs this help and free will. Together, it is a network. It's not that any individual.
So you have to draw the
other.
line for every individual and even perhaps for society.
Okay.
Does the criminal who's born in poverty have free will to not be a criminal if most of the people in prison came in below the poverty line? So there's some sociological force operating there.
So
that where we are less susceptible to that force.
I think that's a great question, analogy. Let's say this. Say those folks who have been branded criminals by our society are incarcerated.
Yes.
We can then, who were fortunate enough not to face those same circumstances, who are not incarcerated, can look at these incarcerated people and instead of saying we must keep them away from society, welcome them back.
So that's called restorative justice.
Yeah,
that's
and that's a free will example of the exercise of free will
of society.
Of society toward individuals who may not have had the options, had the life experience to recover from a bombed joke.
I saw an old movie where there's a guy who was a junkie.
Yeah.
Right? And he needed help. But they said, no, the cops came and arrested him because he was a junkie. Today, you wouldn't do that. You would say the person needs help.
They need, right.
Even if that person had robbed somebody, that person needs treatment. And the people who cannot shake whatever it is that afflicts them tells me that free will cannot be as free as we think it is. Do you remember the shooter in the University of Texas at Austin?
I remember that one.
Okay?
Yeah.
There's a movie they made out of it called The Tower, where he left a note saying, I just want to kill people. Something must be wrong with my brain. Please, when I die,
look into this.
They looked, and there was a tumor putting pressure on a part of them. In fact, that's how we learn anything about how the brain works when you have situations like this.
Person had the free will to write a note. He had the free will to write the note. So he did not have the will to resist shooting. But that's the line that you were talking about is a partial one.
Why isn't that line always in motion as we learn more and more about how the mind works?
It is.
Okay, so then maybe it's a line of convenience today, but tomorrow we're going to find out, oh my gosh, that person has no real free control over their behavior, over their personality, over their tendencies, over their treatment of others.
It's not a line of convenience. It is, in your words, a perimeter of ignorance. When Newton said we couldn't explain certain things, right? God must have done it.
Of course.
That's a God of the gaps.
Of course.
That delineates what we don't know. The line you describe, I hope, is in fact that perimeter of ignorance which we slowly are moving toward and moving so that we do understand what the true nature of free will is.
So this is where people will push back. Most people are concerned not about the actions, but the consequences. So what they're thinking about is the punitive response to someone who does something wrong. And is a punitive response a deterrent for somebody doing something wrong or doing something wrong in the future.
Especially if they don't have the free will.
Right.
So there's the other side of this entire analysis is how does society interact with people who are being brought into the circle day by day. We're learning what we have control over and what we don't, biophysiologically, intellectually, emotionally.
Yes.
Why do people need anxiety meds? Do they have the freedom to not
they have
be
children.
anxious?
That is why. That is why I'm telling you, I'm taking them every day, and I got 3 reasons that I take them every day.
Some kids need them because they have parents.
No,
I'm just saying.
Very nice, very nice.
Okay, so Charles, if we're going to exit this conversation, if we find a point of agreement, it's that this perimeter of ignorance, we recognize inside the perimeter there are forces operating against free will.
Yes.
Our physiology, our neurochemistry, and physics.
Yes.
That surely that perimeter may grow.
Yes.
But it's possible that there's a limit to how far it will grow.
Yes.
Beyond which we have to admit the existence of free will.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that.
There
Very nice.
we are.
That's a great job.
It doesn't have to be absolute in one direction or another.
It's a bit more fluid. Okay.
I'm okay
All
with
right.
that. There is uncertainty in the universe. I embrace it.
I'll tell you this much. I've been married for 20 plus years. I do not have free will.
On that note, Chuck and Charles, thanks for helping us with this explainer.
Awesome.
On the perspectives, let's call it, but emergent perspectives on free will.
Look at extreme cases. A brain tumor can change someone's behavior completely. That's not a moral failure. That's biology interfering with decision-making. The same applies to poverty, trauma, and environment. People don't start from the same place, and those conditions shape outcomes in ways they don't control. Now connect that to religion. Systems like Christianity depend on clear responsibility. Good choices get rewarded, bad ones get punished. But if behavior is heavily influenced by factors outside someone's control, that system stops making sense. What replaces it is a different approach. Not punishment first, but understanding and response. You see it already happening. Addiction treated as a health issue, not just a crime. Society is slowly shifting because the evidence forces it to. And the more we learn, the harder it becomes to draw a clean line and say, this person freely chose this.
Most religious people in America fully embrace science. So the argument that religion has some issue with science applies to a small fraction of those who declare that they are religious. They just happen to be a very vocal fraction, and so you get the impression that there's more of them than there actually is. It's actually the minority of religious people who reject science or feel threatened by it or want to sort of undo or restrict where science can go. The rest, are just fine with science, and has been that way ever since the beginning. And by the way, there's no tradition of scientists knocking down the door, the Sunday school door, telling the preacher what to teach. There's no tradition of scientists picketing outside of churches, nor should there be some emergent tradition of religious fundamentalists trying to change the curriculum in the science classroom. There's been a happy coexistence for centuries, and for that to change now would be unfortunate, because I've seen this happen in other nations and other states where the consequences are that you just basically recede back to the cave, because that's where you land when you undermine the scientific and technological innovations that come about when you're a properly trained scientist or technologist. Consider also that in America, 40% of American scientists are religious. So this notion that there's some, that if you're a scientist, you're an atheist, or if you're religious, you're not a scientist, that's just empirically false. It's an empirically false statement. And what I mean by religious is you can pose the question in a way that is unambiguous. You don't ask, well, do you go to church every Sunday? Because plenty of people go to church like just for the pie, or the social scene after the service. You ask people, do you pray to a personal God? If you say yes to that, you're religious by presumably anybody's standards of your conduct, and it's the yes to that question that applies to 40% of scientists. So while there are plenty of atheists who are scientists or not scientists, to paint this as some built-in conflict is, there may be a conflict, but plenty of people in this country coexist in both worlds.
Great reverence and awe for the universe. I'm wondering if you believe in God or a higher power of some form.
I've spoken with people who have had deep religious experiences, and there's a certain vocabulary that they draw from. They talk about majesty and being humbled and being awed. And I look at the universe and I'm using all this same vocabulary. And I feel sort of energized and lifted. I wonder if it's stimulating the same part of the brain. This is a question I've actually formally posed to neuroscientists to sort of check this out. These are the folks that have put electrodes in your brain and see what excites one region versus another. Every account of a higher power that I've seen described of all religions, okay, that I have seen, include many statements with regard to the benevolence of that higher power. And when I look at the universe and all the ways the universe wants to kill us, I find it hard to reconcile that with statements of beneficence. So personally, it's hard for me to make that connection. That being said, there's about 40% of American scientists pray to a personal God. So empirically, to be a scientist is not the same thing as to be an atheist. Empirically, because we have 40%. Now, depending on which scientific discipline you ask, that percent will be different, but it averages to 40. In the general American public, the number is up around 90. So there is a difference between the general public and scientists. But those scientists, just to make it clear, who are productive as scientists are not getting their science out of the Bible. What Galileo noted 400 years ago, he was the first to really make this observation of things. He said, after careful study of the Bible and after careful study of the universe, he concluded, the Bible tells you how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go.
This highlights something people don't always realize. Those powerful spiritual feelings don't actually prove anything about God. Neuroscience shows that feelings of awe, wonder, and even religious experiences can come from brain activity. The same parts of the brain light up whether someone is looking at a galaxy or having a religious moment. That means the feeling is real, but the explanation behind it isn't automatically true. Then there's the bigger issue. The universe itself isn't designed for our well-being. It's mostly empty space, extreme temperatures, and constant threats. Even on Earth, survival depends on navigating risks, disease, natural disasters, environmental limits. That doesn't match the idea of a caring, protective force watching over us. And even scientists who believe in God aren't using religion to do science. Their work relies on observation, testing, and evidence, not scripture. That separation says a lot. It shows that when it comes to understanding reality, belief isn't the tool being used. Evidence is. So after everything we just walked through, the science, the logic, the contradictions, where do you land? Do you think belief in God still makes sense when you look at the evidence? Or do you think it's something we've held on to out of habit and tradition? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe.